Yeah, definitely. Virtual hug.
Yeah.
Oh, so good to see you, Katie.
You too. You too.
So,
go ahead.
I was just gonna say, so you're in DC now. You're up there, keeping pretty busy.
Yeah.
I just want. Well, why don't we? If in case other people do want to watch any of this, so we're gonna record this. How do we know each other? Just give me a background there. Your perspective on that.
So you were my youth pastor when I was in high school, Christian Fellowship Church. I was introduced to you by Gina Maxwell, who's now Gina Boyer, which I talked to her a couple weeks ago.
Love her. Great.
And I just had some really great experiences at that church. And just transparently, like, it was a predominantly white congregation, and I still felt welcomed and loved and supported there, and just so many experiences. I still remember going to Mendenhall, Mississippi. Was that what it was called?
Mendenhall. Yep.
Mendenhall, Mississippi. It was the first time that I was in the ocean when I went down there.
It was the first time you swam, wasn't it?
Not swam, but
no,
definitely
Jeremy was the first time he swam.
Yeah.
And he was scared to death.
He probably was. But yeah, it's just
John Perkins.
It was so beautiful there. It was such a good time to just go and support and like really show God's grace and love on others in that way with CFC. So that's how I know you and Sarah.
Good stuff. Now tell me, one of the reasons why I wanted to talk with you is, the reason, first of all, I respect you greatly. I love you. Consider you a true sister in Christ. But I wanted to, obviously the world's kind of crazy right now, and it's sad that there's this divide. I just want to hear your perspective on the world. I want to hear your perspective on the divide that's currently happening.
Yes, it is a lot happening. And as a Black woman, I'd say, married to a Black man, 4 older Black men who are brothers. I've taught hundreds of kiddos who are kiddos of color. And it's unfair, it's upsetting that we're still having to fight this fight. And I think that, I've been watching the news and reading articles about looting versus rioting and all that. I'm like, voices are being heard. I do not ever want violence, but there's been so much violence to people of color. Like, Lord, like he died, like was murdered with no compassion from those officers. And it was, I'll be honest, I have not brought myself to watch that video. I cannot make myself watch those 8-9 minutes of that man like casually killing somebody. I cannot. I watched the Ahmaud Arbery video, and to me, as an athlete, as someone who's been an athlete my whole life, that really took me down a place that it was very hard to come back from, because it was just so difficult to see this man do what I do every day. Like my husband and I, we run almost every day. We walk in our community every day. Mm-hmm. And to think about like my husband going out for a jog, and we have construction sites over here, like Amazon's being built right down the street. We're always like peeking in the gate just to kind of see what's going on. And the fact that somebody thought that they had that power to take his life.
I want to pause you real quick.
Yeah.
I want to peek into a construction site. See, that hit me differently, because I could peek into a construction site and no one would think twice.
Nope, and they won't. And you can walk down the street, no one will think twice. You can walk your dog. You can jog by yourself. You can get pulled over at 12 p.m. or 12 a.m. 1 o'clock in the morning.
Real quick, I can't jog by myself like you can. So let's just say that out there real clear.
But it's not because not because of the color of your skin. But yeah, I think at this point in my life, I've been having a lot of conversations with my husband and with my friends about like, what can I do to make an impact? I hosted the run back at home, but even that to me is not enough. Like that is not enough. So I want to find ways that I can use my platform and my voice to just continue to bring awareness, but like bring change, because we can be aware that something is going on. And I feel like most of America is aware that that Black people are being treated differently. Like they're aware, they just haven't felt it to react
Sure.
to it. So Black people are feeling it every single day. And a lot of us are just tired. We're just tired.
Okay, so it's interesting. I love that we're not feeling it every day. It's a great statement, Katie. I don't feel it the same way you do. I heard someone say even just very recently, I want to use wisdom versus emotion, all these sorts of things. And it's just so much emotion. We need to use wisdom. And I don't know, just the way you said that right now. Well, of course I'm going to use wisdom more than emotion because I don't feel it as much.
Yeah.
Is that one of the big differences
I'm not
with
sure.
processing? I'm just trying to figure it out.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna have to think on that a little bit more, to be honest. I want to make sure that I'm giving you a thoughtful response. But what I will say is this: when I think I'm an emotional being, I've been emotional my whole life. Like that's just how I operate. Like I literally can feel the feelings of other people, and so my emotions bring me to act often. And my husband, just to kind of give you some context, my husband is very practical. Like he can watch a video and be like, all right, so what do we think about it? What are the pros and cons? Like he can watch some of the riots and like have that kind of thought process. So we balance each other out very well.
Yeah.
Exactly. But he's pushing me a lot to say, okay, well, what is happening with the law? Like what was it? The criminal like write-up. There's like a write-up about George Floyd, about, what took place. And my husband basically read, because he's an attorney, he read the entire article, the entire write-up, and was like, baby, just based on what I read, it's going to be hard to convict him. And I'm like, all the curse words that I wanted to say that I didn't want to say kind of came out. And I was like, oh my gosh, why is it so difficult? Why is it so difficult to, like, millions of people have watched a video where not just one person was a part of somebody's murder, but like 4 people were a part of somebody's murder, and they're still walking free. That would not be a conversation had it not been a Black man. If it was a Black officer and a white man down there, like this would not be a conversation. And I think the emotions is what's driving people to get up there and go, because we've tried to have calm conversations. We've tried to, we go out and vote. We try to like be reasonable, and like for years and years and years and generations, it hasn't had the impact. And even now, it's not super impactful because like they're still walking free, and there's still Black men being murdered by the cops.
So talk to me. Do you feel like there have been improvements in racial relationships in your lifetime or not?
You know what's interesting? I think the answer to that is yes.
Okay.
I actually woke up thinking about, like, when I watched some of the peaceful protests, there's a large numbers of other races standing side by side with African American people who care and are feeling this pain. The thought that I actually had, just such a random question, which was like, I wonder how many of those people, grandparents, were part of like the civil rights movement. Like how many of them, like that's a part of their culture and their history. But the other piece is, other people are tired too. Like in 2020, it's hard to be in a community of people and not have friends of different races and beliefs. It's very difficult. And if you are, you may be racist if you have no one who's like, if you have a multi-racial collection of people in your life. And so, because that's how we are today, like it makes people of different races want to get out there and fight the fight, because it's their loved ones, it's their friends, it's their families, it's their, their college roommates that are feeling the pain of oppression of Black people.
It's interesting, Katie, you weren't here in Evansville, of course, for the rally that was here, but I was there with some other people, and the estimates that we had, and these aren't official or anything, but we would guess it was probably 70 at least % non-Black, and that was an interesting difference. I think all of us could see the injustice this time more, and I don't know if it's just repeated. We thought it was over. I don't know what it is, but I thought that was just an interesting
I think people, I do think people thought we had a Black president. Like, what? How can I? Like, no, it's still, racism is still very prevalent in America.
Sure.
Racism is still very prevalent all around the world. And I think that because Barack Obama was such an amazing president, and led with such grace, people really loved and valued him. And some people put blinders on what was happening because we have a Black president. Okay. No, that does not mean that this is over. It means that we have someone who looks like us who is leading, but he still had so many obstacles that he had to get past to change legislation. Speaking of the rally, when I did my run a couple of weeks back, it was probably the same percentage of, allies that were supporting the event, which I wish I would have had more folks of color to just come out and be a part of that, because the whole point of that race or that run was so that people of different communities could see Black and brown faces in their community running and not be fearful and understand, like, hey, Black people want to just run because running is healthy, because maybe I had a long day and I want to just like go out and like burn some calories. So that's what I wish I would have seen more of. But we're definitely seeing numbers now. We are definitely seeing numbers of my Black people in the streets, and I am proud of those who are going out and doing things peacefully. This may not be the right platform to say this, but
say what you want to say. You're good.
So one of my first initial reactions, like when the first protests first started happening, I was like, man, God, like, let it be peaceful. Let it be peaceful, because I don't want, one, more Black people to die. And two, I don't want like this man's death to become something that they can like drag Black people through the mud again for. Like, oh, here come these Black folks just tearing stuff up. Like, because that's what people will say. They will say that. So when I seen them like looting Target, I was like, dang it, y'all stop. What's this? What is this helping? But I'll be honest, when I seen them burn down the police precinct, I was not upset. And I know some people are going to disagree with that, but I was not, because I feel like if there is a building with people, and not all, because I have friends who are sheriffs, I have friends who are cops, I have friends who like go out every day and put their lives at risk to protect our community. But if one of my friends who's a cop sees another cop hurting or killing someone and doing the wrong thing, and they don't call them out, they are just as wrong. So if that entire building had multiple folks who knew things were going on in the city, and they didn't complain, put those, like, document those instances, it's wrong and it needs to be shut down. And that's why I feel like our entire system has to kind of like be scorched to kind of start fresh. And
it's interesting. Yeah, it's interesting. I talked right in the aftermath of all this. Of course, I'm actually meeting in about an hour with 3 African-American friends of mine that are colleagues of mine. We do the same job. Yeah. And so I want to hear their perspective on some things. But one of the guys that I talked with right afterwards was a guy from our congregation who's a policeman, and just the brokenness in him. It was so, I've heard the brokenness from a few African-American friends. I'm about to meet with some more, and I love that you're being able to share with me right now. But I want you to hear that there's true brokenness from a lot of policemen as well that are just like, I can't believe this is happening. And they're just so sad.
I saw, there's a video from Flint, Michigan that's going around right now. Like, and the cop is saying, like, listen, I took my hat off, my baton is laying down, and like, I do not agree in what that officer in Minneapolis did. I don't agree. That's not who we are, and that's not what like this county is about. So like, what can I do and our department do to support you and like be with you? And they said, walk with them. It is a small gesture, and he did. And I think, like, to me, that is going to be, like, a lot of folks are saying we have to get white allies to come and help us fight this fight. While that is true, I think I've seen so many F the police signs and F-12s. And I'm like, to me, they're the ones who are going to be the ones to like help stop this. If we can think about it, if we get thousands of police officers from around the country to stand up and say, listen, I do not agree. This is not what I stand for. This needs to be done. This needs to be done. And this needs to be done to fix this problem. And then they march and they go into, they try to get laws changed and they try to get the trainings fixed. To me, that is what's going to be one of the biggest shifts in this movement right now. If those who we see as oppressed, and not just we see, but have been oppressors in this movement against like Black lives, that will be the game changer in my mind.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's good. I think, you know, when I look, hatred doesn't change things. Hatred is understandable. If you hate the police or if you hate the whatever, it's understandable, but it's a short-term emotion.
Mm-hmm.
And if we can begin to love, that will actually change things for the positive. Because what happens is hatred comes and then the other side says, okay, yeah. And it just keeps elevating.
Yeah.
So, and I think one of the problems, okay, I look at media and I look at social media, and I think there's so many good things that can come out of it, and there's so many negative things that can come out of it. I'm just curious how you think media has affected racism and social media has affected racism issues.
A couple things. So one, my husband and I, we watch CNN often. I feel like CNN does support, you know, a lot of the thoughts and beliefs of people of color, and it presents media in a way that is non-biased for the most part. But I was like, I just wonder what is happening on Fox right now. Like, I'm just wondering, what is the message being portrayed on Fox News? And so we turned to Fox and like watched it for like a half an hour, and I was like, literally the same cities, same titles on the top, same people in the videos that CNN was broadcasting, and you hear looters, you hear rioters, you hear thugs, and versus like CNN was very intentional about separating peaceful protest and looters. These are two separate sentences, whereas Fox did a terrible job of like really merging those two things together and making us all seem like we're all going to tear the city up. Everyone is not trying to tear the city up. No. And so I think that in that small situation, depending on what you watch, is how you take the news and what becomes your reality. The other piece, I think social media has done a really great job, can do a really good job of like unifying people. For example, like you and I have not connected in such a long time. And so to be able to reach out through that avenue and have a connection and have a conversation about, you know, what's happening in the world is really beautiful.
Yeah, and I wanted to hear your perspective because, you know, I have a single mom that I'm going to be talking with later on and how that affects her kids. I have some teenagers that I'm going to be talking with because that's different. But you you're a strong woman, always have been strong. You're not you're not living in Evansville area right now. I wanted to hear your perspective. I value it, and I think it would be maybe because you're going to have different perspective than a black man, than a black, you know, it's not a racial completely. We're all raised differently as well.
Yeah. And that is why I feel like social media, that's something that social media also allows. Like, you have hundreds of folks who you are in contact with and you have access to, and all of our stories are different. Like me as a black woman living in DC, my cousin as a black woman living in Henderson, Kentucky, like my mom as a black woman living in Evansville. Like, even though we're all black women, all of our stories are different. All of our reactions are different. Like, my mom is like, hey, my way to combat this is to go to work every day, provide for my family, make sure my sons are not out there, you know, doing anything inappropriate, make sure my sons are taking care of their families. Right. And that's her way of combating this. My way was hosting a race. My way is trying to raise money. So like, that's why understanding your platform and like understanding the power that you have and your strengths, and then you going full throttle and what you're good at to like help combat it. I have a friend who just finished, just became a doctor, and she's like, I'm not going out there on the front lines. I'm not doing that. But what I will do is I will get in my car and I will pass out health supplies. What I will do is I will be parked like back behind the lines. And if someone gets hurt, I have the skill to help them heal physically.
Yeah.
And so like really just thinking about like, what are my skills and how can I use that to like fight this battle? Like, what is your weapon in battle?
That's cool. So this weekend, we're going to be studying the book of Ezra. We're talking about rebuilding, and just one of my points is that we're united on purpose, but we all have different roles in what we do. So along those lines, though, how would you challenge our leadership, our church, or the people in our church? You know, where you don't know our church specifically. We're downtown. We're in the heartbeat of things. We're on Main Street and stuff like that. So it's a little different than our previous church that we were at together, but you know, both good, just different roles. How would you challenge us? What do we need to hear?
Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
And not that it's important, but it is. Like, what is the demographic breakdown of your congregation, would you say?
I think that's a very fair question. We're going to be more white than anything else. We talked about this today. Like, our youth group's probably half black. It's really funny. It's about half the kids in there are my kids type, and about half though are going to be black. We have a lot of we have a handful of I'd say 15 to 20 out of 250 to 300 might be black. So it's going to be less than 10%.
Yeah, I mean,
not including the kids, but then when you throw in the kids, it's a lot higher number because we so I don't know, maybe 30 out of 300 total might be black. Are you with me? And did I just lose you?
Sorry. No,
okay.
I'm good.
No, it's all good. So maybe, and I'm just guesstimating, maybe 30 out of 300 might be black on an average week. And we do have some adoptive children that are, I'm just trying to be just honest and stuff. You know, my associate pastor is Latino. So he's not white, and he's the other full-time pastor on staff. And we have a few Latinos and Asian and stuff like that as well. But I would say we're easily 85% white.
And I think any organization that asks this question and that is somewhat of the demographic breakdown, like you have to be willing to listen. And that's why I really appreciate this call. Because Black people really are hurting right now. And I made a post the other day that basically said, like, we have always been a strong people. Like, from the beginning of time when some of our ancestors were taken, you know what I mean? Like, we have always been resilient people. And I think that society sees us as like, we're always strong. We can always get going. We can always keep moving. And this just hurt that it's 2020. I'm educated like this. I'm supposed to be living the American dream and like life is supposed to be good. And the American dream doesn't look the same. Anyway, so that I want to pause to answer your question. Sorry. But,
no, this is good. We need to hear this, Katie.
What I will say is like, you first have to listen. And not listen because like there's just some agenda, but like listen because like we just want to be heard sometimes, right? And I think we have spent the majority of our lives listening to the perspective of white people.
Okay. And
for us to resolve anything, you have to hear our perspective. So don't listen to respond. Don't listen to find a solution. Just listen for now. And then if there's actions that we think you all can take, we will give them to you. The other piece is, and I don't want this to sound rude, but I think what you did by messaging me is happening around the country a lot. Like white people are reaching out to people of color and Black people saying like, how can I help? And yes, that is a great question. But the other piece is like, it's not my job to tell you how to end racism. Like we can't give that answer. Like we didn't create racism. We didn't build it. Like, so there's just some work that like people who are the allies have to do individually, and like the intellectual prep that they have to come to the conversation with. You know, so there's some books. I'm going to send you a list of some text that you can kind of like look at and share, just to get more of the perspective, like, you know, poverty and redlining and like all the systemic pieces that have oppressed Black people for so long. But like, I don't have time to explain to everybody. We don't have time.
No, I mean, yeah.
And not that you were asking me to solve this problem by any means, but I think that it's important to say that, because some people who have not had this conversation with Black friends, that's going to be one of the first questions. Hey, how can I help you? Like, what can I do right now? I'm trying to fight a racial battle right now. I don't know I don't know what you can do. I'm trying to survive day to day when my people are getting shot in the street. I can't answer that for you. So I don't want that to come out rude, but I do want like white people to understand that like, it's not the job of Black people to answer that question. And it's like, if you go to a meeting with somebody, right? If you go to like a business meeting with somebody, like you have to come to that conversation with some prep done already. And listening, of course, like you have to have like some of the foundational knowledge to go to that conversation and get things done. So, yeah.
No, and Katie, you know, that I'm not going to solve anything. What I need to do, I need to consistently examine my own heart.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because I've never felt like, I was always raised in a very, you know, my father really, he played football and was in Montgomery during the Civil rights stuff, as a peace officer, and watched a lot and instilled in us. And so we always were told, and we always saw a good model of my father really going out of the way. All the Black football players love my dad. They just do. And that's just kind of how it was. So I never saw it in the same way. But then again, I never felt it in my heart, a racial divide towards African Americans. But that doesn't mean that it didn't exist.
It always
and so I think it's like, for me, I want to examine my heart regularly, but I also want to learn how to challenge the people that I have a say in their lives. And it's not, I'm not trying to gain an audience. I'm trying to be responsible for those that might listen to my voice. And so I want to be responsible with leading.
Yeah. And I get off on tangents all the time. So if I start talking too much, you can just say, Katie, wait a minute. So I talked about listening. I talked about coming to the conversation with some kind of foundational knowledge. And I just want to make sure this is extremely clear. Like, if anyone in any space chooses to use the phrase, like, I don't see color, that is the end of the conversation for me. Good. Because what that says, like, to me, when someone says, I don't see color, what does that say to you?
I mean, to me, I value the differences that we have in the color that you bring to the conversation. I think for me, I was kind of told that, hey guys, we got to quit seeing color. That was being told by, I would just say, a very naive, they wanted to end racism. And so 10 years ago, there was being told, we just got to quit seeing color. We got to quit seeing color, but it's very naive. I never bought into that.
It's very disrespectful. Like, as a Black woman, if you look at me and you don't see that I'm a Black woman with full lips and a broad nose, like, you don't see me. You don't see me, because I bring a lot to the table by being a Black woman with all these attributes in my culture. And for us to even have a conversation, you have got to see me first.
Totally agree. I'm glad you said that, because I think there has been a false narrative, and I think it's been sort of like, good-hearted, don't see color, but it's stupid. Because you can have a good heart and be stupid, you know?
Yeah. And you talked about, like, kind of checking your heart. What was the phrase you said?
I have no idea. I'm not that smart to remember
that.
But
you basically were talking about, like,
I need to continually examine my heart. I know I have to always do that.
Yeah, and I think that not seeing color is an easy way of saying, like, I'm a good person. But you can be a great person and understand that I'm Black and you're white and there's differences, and I'm Black and you're white and you're treated differently and my experiences are different, and like all those things. So you can be a great person and see color. Like, to be a great person, you kind of have to see color. You have to.
I think to be a wise person and to be a person who values other people, you need to.
There we go.
And I think a lot of that has been lost. I think sometimes in the first steps towards a reconciliation, you might say some things or do things that are stupid that you're like,
Yeah.
you know, it wasn't probably the best way. And you might, I might argue a violent riot would be one of those things. I don't think that's healthy, but I get it, but I don't agree with it because, you know, and so I think we do some things that probably we look back and go, you know what, it had its purpose. It probably wasn't the best. And I think with not seeing color, I think that was a step towards, oh, we need to see color. We just need to value it.
Yep. Yeah. It's just being mindful of how we choose to share that is important. So, yeah. Sorry. And I was just thinking about, you know, you mentioned, you know, you don't agree with rioting. And I think a lot of folks don't agree. I think a lot of Black folks are like, look, that's not what we're talking about. That's not what we're doing. But I think when I talk about like that, like foundational knowledge, like reading history over and over again, like and seeing like, here's a peaceful protest. Here's a piece of protest. Oh, they burnt out that entire city. Here's another piece of protest. Oh, they killed 4 girls in a church. Here's another piece of protest. It's like, okay, how many peaceful protests can we have before like we as Black people realize this is not working? Like I don't know. We're putting people in positions, you know, but that's where that his like the piece of like understanding history is important, because you have to know why and how someone can even get to this point. It wasn't because, oh, they just killed George Floyd and now we're going to tear up the entire city in the world. No.
Yeah.
And once again, not that it's right, not that it's like I am go do everything, and that's not what I'm saying.
I know. You're good.
If I stand in front of you and smack you 50 times, and I'm hurting your kids, and I'm hurting your wife, and I'm hurting your babies, you may pick something up and smack me back, and no one can be mad at you for protecting your family and your home. Anyways, back.
No, you're good. I think I want to hear your heart, Katie. You know, it's a lot of what's going on. Your heart is hurt. You're processing things. You're helping me process things. My heart is hurt, and I want you to see that I'm the same as you in that I love people. I love the human race. I love you. Yeah. And we're in this together. You know, we're in this together to, you know, my goal, of course, is to glorify God through all that I do. And I screw up and I don't do it perfectly. Yeah. And that's what Jesus's blood is for. He has come and he has died for me. He has continued to chase after me in my weakness. Yeah. In my screw ups, which you know about, Katie. And so, but the Lord has been faithful to me. And not because of my faithfulness, because of him. And so what I'm doing is we're the human race, and we're here together to my goal is to lead people to the Lord and let the Lord do whatever with everyone. We're all different. We're all have different backgrounds. And your goal, you have something to bring to the table that is a hole in a lot of people right now, and a hole in our country right now. And I just appreciate you sharing with us today to help us both have that same goal, reach, fill our corrupted hearts with more of the truth. And you know, people might not agree with everything you said, and but that's okay. I think it's good that we hear and we listen and allow the Lord to just teach us all. Yeah.
Well, and I really appreciate you taking time to just do this work to better serve God and to better serve the people in your community who God has allowed you to help lead. And I think that this is what it takes. It takes having these conversations. It takes empathy, it takes understanding, and this is what it will take to heal this nation, because there's so many underlying issues. But all in all, like Black people right now are really hurting.
Yep.
And what the last thing I'll add is like, a lot of Black people, as I said, like right now I'm sitting in, my husband and I work really hard for the life that we have now. So like we have created a life of privilege, and like even I am starting to struggle with it sometimes. So like I'm sitting in a beautiful apartment with a husband who is on an international call with somebody in Russia doing work, right? And even we are hurting because at any moment when he walks out of that office and goes out in the street, like he is still a 6'2" Black man. And if someone sees him as a threat, his life could end like George Floyd, his life could end like Ahmaud Arbery. Like, and that question mark is the scariest thing because it's about who perceives him and how they perceive him. And that hurts.
Yeah.
Because no matter how hard we work, how much we pray, how much we tithe, how many degrees we have, like my husband can still be shot in the street. And that is heartbreaking, and it evokes anger, and it evokes so many emotions that it's going to take a lot to process, if you will. But I'm grateful for this conversation because now I get to take a step back and continue to reflect on like how I'm processing and what my next steps and our next steps can be.
Okay. Katie, can I end with a prayer for you?
Absolutely.
And for our nation. Lord, I just thank you so much for this time that we've had to talk. I thank you for Katie. What a beautiful woman she is. I remember her when she was this crazy teenage girl and how you've grown her up, Lord, to really do some amazing things in her life, how you have given her many blessings, Lord. I pray that she would be a blessing to others with the blessings that you have given her. I pray that you would put a hedge of protection around her family, around her husband, around her. I pray that you'd give them wisdom with how to deal with the racial issues that are going on. I pray that you give her peace in her heart, God. I pray, God, as we know that you are still sovereign, that you are faithful, that you are in control, and that you love her deeply and all of us deeply. I pray that as a nation we would heal. I pray that as a nation we would turn to you. And we just pray that you would bring restoration of truth and of peace and of your ways, God, to a world that desperately needs it, God. So thank you for Katie. We just pray that you would just help her to process this well and effectively, and that she would be faithful to do whatever she is called to do as a result of the emotions and gifting you've given her. So thank you for this time also, and we love you, and we just pray this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
All right, Katie. Well,
right.
I'm going to get running. It is so good seeing you again. So good talking with you on here.
Yeah.
And yeah, look forward to keeping in touch with you.
Absolutely. See you soon.
Okay.
Thanks. Bye.
Thanks. Bye.